And it is deeply shocking. As I say, I think it's really wrong for all the young people in our country who actually become solicitors, who actually achieve things. No, and I've lived through Labour governments before, and you can have perfectly stable and good Labour governments. So it must reflect on him. There's no way that the Prime Minister can avoid all of this.
The evidence has finally surfaced, and it's worse than anyone imagined. Labour Shadow Minister Jonathan Reynolds claimed to be a solicitor for years, a title he never earned, potentially breaking Section 17 of the Legal Services Act 2007. Keir Starmer's reaction: deafening silence. The former director of public prosecutions, who built his entire brand on integrity, is now ignoring potential criminal misconduct within his own cabinet. This scandal isn't just about Reynolds, it's about the culture of deception Starmer has allowed to flourish while preaching accountability to the public. What happens when the man who built his entire career on integrity suddenly goes silent? Keir Starmer's carefully crafted image as the paragon of political virtue is crumbling before our eyes, and nowhere is this more evident than in his deafening silence over the Jonathan Reynolds scandal.
Yes, it does. And to come into office with all these highfalutin claims about restoring dignity and honour, and so it must reflect on him. There's no way that the Prime Minister can avoid all of this.
I don't think there's been a government, certainly in my living memory, which has been so out of touch with the thoughts and the feelings of the public.
This isn't merely a case of ministerial misspeak. It's a potential criminal offence that the Prime Minister is deliberately choosing to ignore. Let's rewind to 2004, when Jonathan Reynolds stood on the floor of Parliament and proudly declared himself a solicitor in Manchester city centre. These words weren't casually spoken at some private dinner or off-the-record chat. They're permanently etched into Hansard, the official parliamentary record. Reynolds presented himself as a qualified legal professional in the most sacred institution of British democracy. But here's the bombshell that Starmer desperately hopes you won't notice. The Solicitors Regulation Authority had already investigated Reynolds and explicitly instructed him to stop falsely claiming this qualification. Yet, with breathtaking arrogance, Reynolds continued this charade for years afterward. The deception wasn't a one-off mistake, but a calculated pattern of misrepresentation. The evidence against Reynolds is overwhelming and spans multiple platforms. His CV boldly listed him as a solicitor. His LinkedIn profile, visible to thousands of professional contacts, maintained the same fiction. Most damning of all is that statement on the parliamentary record, a deliberate misrepresentation that now hangs like an albatross around Starmer's neck. What makes this situation particularly rich with irony is Starmer's own background. This is a man who served as Director of Public Prosecutions, who built his entire career on upholding the law and prosecuting those who broke it.
But not taken seriously, and Jonathan Reynolds is obviously a wrong 'un.
Yeah.
And it is deeply shocking. As I say, I think it's really wrong for all the young people in our country who actually become solicitors, who actually achieve things. You know, integrity, well, that's all gone now. Clearly he has shysters in office with him.
Yes.
Yet now, faced with potential criminal misconduct in his own cabinet, he remains conspicuously absent from the conversation. Where is the righteous indignation he so readily displayed in opposition? Where is the man who promised to restore integrity to British politics? The contrast between Starmer's campaign promises and his current behaviour is stark. Remember his impassioned speeches about maintaining the highest standards of integrity and transparency in government. Remember how he positioned himself as the antidote to years of Conservative scandal. Those words ring hollow now as he shields his cabinet colleague from scrutiny. This isn't merely an ethical lapse or a case of resume padding. Section 17 of the Legal Services Act is crystal clear. Falsely claiming to be a solicitor constitutes a criminal offense. In any other context, Starmer, the prosecutor, would have pursued such a case with vigor. Starmer, the Prime Minister, however, appears more interested in political self-preservation than legal accountability. The Reynolds scandal forces us to confront an uncomfortable question: who is the real Keir Starmer?
And he appointed them. So he's decided to be amongst shysters, and he has picked these people to be in his cabinet with him.
Yeah.
No, and I've lived through Labour governments before, and you can have perfectly stable and good Labour governments.
Is he the principled former prosecutor who built his career on upholding the law, or is he just another politician willing to compromise his values when they become inconvenient? His silence speaks volumes, and what it tells us is profoundly disturbing. The implications extend far beyond Reynolds himself. This scandal represents the first thread in a tapestry of broken promises that is rapidly defining Starmer's leadership. The Prime Minister, who promised a new era of political integrity, now shields a cabinet member who potentially broke the law. The man who vowed to respect the British public now treats them with contempt by refusing to address legitimate concerns. This pattern of selective honesty extends across Starmer's governance. We're witnessing the same approach to his abandoned manifesto pledges, his shifting position on Brexit, and his increasingly transparent attempts to rewrite his own political history. The Jonathan Reynolds scandal isn't an isolated incident. It's a window into how Starmer's government operates. The Labour government's facade is crumbling faster than anyone anticipated. As Starmer's approval ratings plummet, the political landscape has shifted dramatically. Recent polls show the once fringe Reform UK overtaking Labour in popularity. This isn't a minor setback. It's a collapse of public trust unprecedented for a newly elected Prime Minister. Voters who believed Starmer's promises of integrity are now using terms like incompetent and dishonest to describe him. Political analysts point to his inability to address mounting scandals as the primary cause of this rapid descent. The government appears to be in complete disarray, creating a vacuum where public disillusionment festers. The consequences extend beyond Starmer's political career. As his credibility evaporates, the broader perception that the entire political system is broken gains momentum. This isn't about whether Starmer can weather these storms politically. It's about the damage being inflicted on Britain's democratic institutions and the public's faith in government itself.